picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Yes, welcome back and sing it with me. We all do in fact live in a Yellow Submarine. You might have caught the glimpse that I was going to be continuing my slightly nautical but nice series. I just finished up the Nautilus and I figured I'd go on to another fictional submarine. Of course, all of my submarines that I've been building are fictional. Seaview, Proteus, the other Nautilus, the Pegasus Nautilus, they've all been fictional. So why not? Why not build the Yellow Submarine? Well, I'll tell you why not. I have not been this angry about a kit, and I don't know how long. And angry isn't the word. Disappointed. Disappointed is the word. I'm disappointed in AMT Yellow for this kit for very many reasons. But mostly because it's just the cheap way out they took, and I will try to elucidate that. Come to the table. Okay, this is the box for the Yellow Submarine. Again, this is something I built back in the day. I built one years upon years ago, and had pleasant memories of it. Thought it would be nice to rebuild it, do a little bit nicer job now that I've got maybe a little bit more of expanded of a skill set than back in the day. And I'm immediately struck by how cheap this is. Now they kept some features and completely eliminated some other features. When I built this back in the day, there were stands, clear stands that had inserts of the 4 Beetle characters. Now I understand maybe you don't have the, whatever rights. It's easier to do it without it these days. Okay, no big deal. But they kept the parts. It's sort of like that line in Poltergeist about you moved the tombstones, but you left the bodies, but you just moved the tombstones. These things here, these little flowers, these were the connectors between the 4 clear panels that went the contoured panels that had the Beetle inserts in it, and they just kept them. There's no explanation for them in the instructions. I know what they were because I remember, but a new modeler would be confused by that. Before I even get into the whole decal fiasco, I think this is a new propeller. I don't remember this propeller being this big before, and they kept the inserts of Jeremy and Old Fred, but the biggest problem is, well, first of all, they added these holes I don't remember for no bloody good reason. There are holes and I think it's probably because you're expected to put this in the bathtub, and if you fill it full, if you get it down in the water, this gives you a drain hole. I don't know, but I got to tell you, the decals on this thing are just simply embarrassing. Okay, these are the decals, and they look like they were drawn by children. Even small children, maybe vision impaired children drew these. I don't know. Look at how amateurish. I understand they were trying to do something that look like an animated cartoon, but even the animated portholes look better than that. And these symbols here that go on either side of the housing, the main conning tower, those are embarrassingly bad too. Now trust me, on camera, these look blue. These rings here look blue. In real life, it's purple. It should be blue. I mean, it should be a navy blue. It should look like that. And on camera, it's amazing. They do actually look blue. But in my hand, they look purple. So that's the wrong color. What really makes me mad about this is that they chickened out. They chickened out. They cowered. The cowards that they are. They did not include the stripe here as part of the decal sheet. Now you're expected to go in and paint that by hand, I'm assuming. God knows how. You thought the stripes on the spindrift were bad. This is nothing but there's not a straight line on this entire boat, and you're expected to hand paint in these stripes. Well, I'm going to try to take care of something for that. And this, I don't recall ever being here. These screw holes to keep it together. that's an embarrassingly big hole that needs to be filled. Of course, I'm going to fill all of these. I'm going to try to make this, it's odd to say, I'm going to try to make something screen accurate for a cartoon, but I'm going to try to make this a little bit more accurate. First of all, there should be 2 propellers, not 1. There should be 2 propellers. That's something that they did to make the little novelty thing of the crank and the propeller. I'm going to get rid of the crank and propeller. I'm going to fill in these gaping holes on the bottom where it used to have wheels where you rolled it along. Now that was true in the original release as well. But I am going to try to come up with a masking template that will allow you to do this red stripe. Simply because it's you shouldn't have to worry about doing that yourself. That should have been provided. That's model making 101. It's a obvious thing. It should have been there. But I just think they took the cowardly way out and decided not to. And then you've got something else I don't understand. You've got all of your periscopes. These 4 periscopes land here on this plate. The plate that goes there, and then there's a railing around it. But for some stupid reason, they include 2 pieces that you will never see that go to make this whole thing, and then you would just insert it. These 2 pieces are redundant and stupid, and I think the only reason why is because, again, if you're going to sink this thing in water, they don't want water getting up in there, which is kind of ridiculous if you think that people are building this for the purposes of putting it in a bathtub. It's ridiculous. It's a model. There are plenty of other toys you can buy if you want to buy a toy. So, things I'm going to do to this kit. Oh, the things I'm going to do to this kit. First of all, I'm going to correct these portholes. I'm going to try to do something as painted that makes it look a little bit different. I'm going to make them actually circular. Look at those. Those are amateur hour. Even for supposedly hand-drawn, those are amateur hour. They have indications on the hull, I don't know if you can see them there, of where the perfectly round portholes should be. Not even, they didn't even engrave a line for this. I just drew this on by hand, trying to indicate it as best I could to try to figure out exactly what the contours of it should be. Let's see, I'm going to replace the propellers. What else? I think that's it. I might try to do a little bit something with the periscopes, but this will not be a simple build out of the box. I'm going to try to make this a lot more accurate than the kit that you are provided. Okay, here is a reference I was able to find online after about 2 seconds of searching that shows you basically what the Yellow Submarine should look like. And that is the shape that they are shooting for, but it is not that. That's just, this is a much, well, this is actually the model sheet from the animated film. And look, hey look, portholes that are round. None of this stupid oblong stuff. Oh yeah, we're going to try to do our own interpretation of it. It's very simple. It's a circle with a circle inside it. Shouldn't be too tough to recreate. And then there's the red stripe. I'm locked into this question about whether I should try to outline everything with the black line, like around these panels here, the hatches, the portholes themselves, because those would be very difficult to paint. And this red line has, that has black on either side of it. It sure would have been nice if they'd have given that as a decal with a black line already printed on either side of it. So we're going to have to figure out exactly what it is we're going to make out of this kit. Okay, so I'm just doing up the sub-assemblies. You're going to hear that a lot because this is a sub and I'm assembling it. So I'm doing up the sub-assemblies as I can. The periscopes and whatnot, things that I can be working on, and then gang them all together. All together now. So you'll also be hearing a lot of Beatles song puns this week, so get used to that. What I'd like to do is get to a point where I can join the left and right pieces, and then To do that, I also need to put this little medallion feature in here, which is the top of the conning tower, and get that glued in. Then I can join up the left and rights, fill in this big gap down here, and putty over the holes that aren't supposed to be there, and like I've got the shaved down where the crank was, and I've got it shaved down where the propeller was. So get all this put together and try to work this seam into place. Boy, it's nasty too. Not a lot of really good things to say about this kit, but hopefully I'll be able to get it into ship shape. Again, more nautical puns. Oh, the joy and wonderment continues. I am just putting in two of the most ill-fitting doors I've ever put in a kit in my life. I don't know who engineered this kit, but maybe they were blue meanies in another life. This is just nasty. I don't mind a gap as long as it's even. And these are panels, so yes, they're going to be painted a different color anyway. But heavens to Betsy, we could have made a better fit than that. I've snipped off the bottom of the hinges because these will not be opening doors. That one kind of fits nicely. It's nicely indented all the way around. I can kind of live with that. This one I don't know what I'm going to do with. Well, maybe we'll just display it on hide that side against the wall and display it like that and not have to worry about it. Man, they could have made this so much better. And I'm just cleaning off the periscopes. Actually, there's two periscopes. Two pair of periscopes. Okay, I've done about as much as I can do with filling in with strips of styrene. But for big gaps like that, I'm going to have to pull out the Bondo and just start slathering in the gaps. Try to close up some of these. Well, welcome back. It's Tuesday, and we are going to continue work on the Yellow Submarine. And right now it is mostly yellow, and that's only because it's bundled up in all of the tape and rubber bands I had to use to hold it somewhat together last night while all of the glue dried. So we're going to take all this off today and see how bad these seams turned out. Let me get this on the tripod. Okay, this is a mess. This is a mess of a... Look at that. That's horrible. And that's squeezed together and taped as well as I could last night. So, yeah, I'm going to have to do some major work there. Grind that son of a gun down. But I had to pop open one of the seams this morning to even get the tape off correctly. I got to pull that part back out. This is horrible. Again, the charms of this kit are very, very few. So I'm going to tape this back up. Try to work this as strongly as I can. And then see what I can do about this. If I can get underneath it. And this is using that little block that they... Oh, that's horrible. Yeah, I can't get around that without some sort of... That's going to take a riding belt sander to get rid of that. I'm really to the point where I have to work each inch of this seam and tape it and reinforce it as I go. And sand it as I go, and see, I sanded a little bit on here and I actually got it to level out, but it's just nasty all over. So for a small kit, don't think it's going to go together very easily. Well, let me just start getting the files and the sanders out. Okay, I've got some sanding done. I've got more puttying done. This is unique. Well, not unique. The problem is we've got some recessed lines that I need to retain. Now, these are painted panels, so obviously the paint lines will help. But I need to remember that when I'm sanding, that I need to rescribe these panel lines and hopefully keep them matched up. There are also these little tiny holes that need plugging. There's just a lot of stupid decisions on this kit. I just don't understand. But mine is not the question why. Mine is but to putty. And putty some more. So we'll let that dry. I think what I'd like to do is maybe get a coat of primer on these periscopes so that I can see whether there's anything there that needs to be addressed. And then we'll just let the rest of this sit. This is not the sexy part of modeling by any stretch. Okay, welcome back. It is Wednesday, and the work continues. I've got this is my third or fourth round of puttying and priming. It's coming into focus. It's getting there. Lord knows there's still plenty of work to be done. Mostly on the bottom still, and even given how it's going to be displayed, I don't know how much I need to worry about the bottom, but it's something that needs done, and I need to do it. There are very few parts to this thing to really worry about. If you get the railing on here and then get the periscopes in, you're pretty much set, and the rest of it's all in the painting. So we're going to let this last batch of, hopefully the last batch of Bondo spot putty dry up, and luckily tonight is my monthly model club meeting, and I'm sure we'll all be commiserating about staying indoors and having to make models all day long. Isn't that horrible? But I can pick up the paints while I'm there that I need. I just need a couple variations on the yellow. I think I've got a good darker yellows, sort of like there's a bright yellow, there's a chrome yellow, and there's a white, and then obviously there's the red stripe. And I've got the sand yellow, which I think is going to act as a good chrome yellow. So I just need to get a bright to go with it, and I'm thinking if I stay in the same paint line, if I stay in the Vallejo Mecha paint line, then my colors will be more consistent rather than mixing Vallejos and Tamiyas and all that kind of stuff, because I've got a very good red here. So if I get and I've got the pure white, I can either use the off-white or the pure white that I've got. Either one of those will work, and I think the pure white is there. So those are three of the four colors that I need. So all I really need now at this point is a bright a lemon yellow. I want to have this thing ready to start painting tomorrow, so what I need to do today, other than waiting for that to dry, is I need to be mapping out the red stripe, because that's going to be the boundary for all of these sections, obviously. You can tell that even on this horrible illustration on the cover, on the box lid. You can see that's where the breakout is. So I need to put some tape down on this thing and pencil out that line. Okay, I brought some friends in to remind me that all you need is love, but I think if I were to subtitle this model build, it would be called All You Need is a Big Honkin' Tube of Bondo Spot Putty. I think I finally got the body shape whipped into some semblance of good enough. The last thing I need to do is, of course, to build the two props in the back. I just took a quick 90 minutes or so to watch the movie again. Lots of good Beatles tunes, and that got me in the mood. A couple of things that I knew and was reinforced or remembered, and that is the areas that are different colors on this. The conning tower is actually it's a slight off-white. It's not 100% white. This panel, however, is 100% white, but the area surrounding it is like maybe a 10% white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to augment my pure white, which is what I'm going to use for that panel, with the off-white for the rest of it. And since we're still in the same color palette, or the same family of mecha colors, hopefully those will all mesh and blend very nicely. But using these four colors, the last thing, like I said, the last thing I want to do, and I can even do those with, and I can even use these little yellow headed, because the propellers are red themselves. but the shafts are yellow, and there is a yellow rounded head on the top of it. So I've got these pins. If I can get one out that's the right color without stabbing myself. Ow. Ow. Here we go. Here's 2 straight pins with yellow heads on them, and I can use those for the propeller shafts. And I just need to cut a couple matching, and they're 3-bladed blade assemblies, and I think I'd be better off, I don't know if I'd be better off trying to cut the blades individually or not, or try to cut them out of one big thing and poke a hole in the center. I think I'll cut them out individually. But that's the last big thing. So what I want to do at this point, see, I'm debating whether I should try to draw out the red stripe now. I should probably try to draw out that red stripe and get that ready to be cut in vinyl. Okay, now this is the actual Yellow Submarine that comes with the, or was sold alongside these other figures, and even they managed to get it right. 2 red propellers. That's how it's supposed to work. So, and you know, I mean, this is a dinky little toy. It's obviously the contours are off, but I'll tell you, they've got one thing right that the kit didn't get right, and that is that the bottom should have a stern line, I guess, I don't know, bow line. It's supposed to have a you know me and my technical terms. This thing right here, the curve is supposed to be there. It's not supposed to be flat like that is. It's supposed to be and I don't think I want to go through the hassle of sculpting anything out of epoxy sculpt to make that fit, because it's actually, I'm thinking of making making a base for it that kind of gives the indication of the temple structure in Pepperland that it sat on, but it had lots and lots of steps and looked like a Mayan pyramid. I'm not going to be going through all that. If I can just make a 4-sided thingy that will match the basic contours of it, I think that would be fine, and I could maybe even do something like that and display it with the other characters surrounding it. Maybe that'll be nice. Hey, welcome back, kids. It's Thursday. The week is slipping by. I'm not getting as much done on this sub as I would like. Good news is I had a big old order I had to get out the door yesterday and today, so that took a lot of my time. Thankfully, the post offices are still open, and folks are making the sensible choice to stay home and build models. So hey, good for me. I've got what I think is going to work for the stripes on the Yellow Submarine, which is the important thing. I've blocked out where the well, it helps if it's in camera. There we go. I've blocked out where the portholes are going to be. Now this is an animated thing. Parts of it shift around, you know, from place to place, from scene to scene. It's not like a you know, a live action movie where they built a model and that was done. I mean, this, I don't even believe they rotoscoped any of the Yellow Submarine. Now, they may have rotoscoped. I know they used cutouts and all kinds of stylistic things for people. But for the submarine itself, it's not like they did in Heavy Metal where they took a bunch of pictures of the model and then rotoscoped it. It looks like a lot of the pictures, from what I could tell, were hand-drawn model, you know, hand-drawn animation of the submarine. So details are going to shift back and move around and shift and things like that. And this kit here, you know, it looks good from the side, minus the, you know, the bottom that's wrong. But picking a good picture of the side to base everything on is not that easy. So I think I've got a good working stripe here. It's just difficult as heck to put this in place because, like I said, there are no square edges to line anything up on. So if we go with something like and again, this trying to put a compound curve around a compound curve is nobody's idea of a good time. If we do something like something like this. Now, I'm thinking now that I just redid this stripe, and I think I made it a little too thin. It's going to act as my boundary between all of these different colors. So I want it to be, you know, at least thick enough to do that. But I may have erred on the side of making it too thin. I may have to go back and redesign that. So it's going to go, oh, that's way too low. Something like that. I think you can see. Yeah, I think I made that too thin. Now, I did find there is one square area that I can start basing things off of, and that is the area above these hatches, because these hatches just don't move. They're a constant. And if I look, hold up. If I look at my animation reference, it looks like the first porthole lines up about middle of this hatch. So if we use that as a reference, and then we could put the second grouping of portholes something like, it's down and they don't quite stack, but it's something like that. So you've got your two levels of portholes. That's actually not bad for a stab in the dark, because it has to curve and hang over all of these contours. That's not half bad. Actually, I like that a lot. I might want to move these forward ones a little bit more farther forward. Okay. I like that, but let's move this first one up a little. Let me get back to you. Okay, I think I'm good. Got the stripes laid out. Got the portholes laid out. So now I know where my geography is. I can do some light pencil lining there, and then what I want to do is paint red in this area where the stripe goes, cover that over, and then start painting my other areas around it. Like I said, I'm going to do a light pencil. I think I'm going to touch all this paint here, obviously, but do a light pencil to help me align everything, so that when I come to painting and putting the masks back on, I'll know exactly where they are. Plus, it won't hurt that I'm taking pictures and video of this at this point. I can always refer back to it. But that's going to work, I think. I think that's going to work fine. And then I've got masks for these hatches, of course, that I'll work on that's part of phase 2. But I will first want to get the portholes painted on, and the see, I can paint the portholes on now, which are orange. There's an orange frame, and then there is a brown interior. So what I can do at this point, and I'll show you, the frame is about yay big. So what I'll do is I'll paint orange in all of these, and then I will cover them over like this, and that'll cover over the orange frame. Then I can paint the brown inside. Then I take these masks completely off and cover over the finished portholes with these complete circles that are on the inside of these masks here. So I'll cover those over and then paint the yellows around it. So that's going to be my my methodology, and I can do that even before I prime the rest of this. So let's do that much of it right now, because I'm dying to get some paint on this thing. Okay, this ship continues to fight me, but I will not let it win. I've just taken some more primer and primed over some more spots. For some reason, I don't know why, this seam here this seam showed itself again. I had puttied it over, I had spackled it down, I had sanded it over, and then I put a coat of primer on it, and now I can see that again, and it's very blatant, so I want to get rid of it. But I've lightly penciled in the marks where I had the vinyl down before, and I will use that as my roadmap for putting down the masks. It'll tell me where the red stripe is, most importantly, so that I know that I can paint that area and try to keep paint, just in that area. But that's certainly the goal. I need to wait for that to dry up so that I can sand those other areas. And I'm trying to see, I need to make masks for these hatches. I can go ahead and do that now while I'm waiting. And beyond that, it's just waiting for the paint to dry and waiting for the Bondo to dry. So same old, same old. I don't know why this little tiny kit is taking so much time. You build a huge model, and half the time it's taken to do this little tiny thing. This is working out well. Got the masks, the perimeter mask here for this lighter white area. Got the port and starboard hatches masked off. I've got a mask for this bottom hatch. Got a mask for this hatch. So now that I've done manhandling the body of the sub, I can sand these little bits of go ahead and take these back off. Sand the bits of Bondo that are left on, and start putting on the first coats of actual color, because I know where everything is supposed to go now. If I can avoid taking off any more paint while I'm removing these, then we will all be in happier shape. So there's nothing that can go wrong with this kit that hasn't gone wrong with this kit. All in the paraphrasing of John Lennon and Paul McCartney, all you need is luck, because there's nothing that can be done. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. Well, there's no paint that you can lift off that hasn't been put down. I swear, every single problem you can have with a kit, I have had with this kit. I am supremely glad that I am not trying to light it, because I cannot imagine what kind of nightmares would come from that. So this is going to turn into an endurance test before we are done. And there's more paint coming off. Look at that! No godly reason for that to come off. Yes. Cannot wait to be done with this. Okay, so the time has finally come to put some color on this beast. So I'm going to paint in the portholes and where the stripe goes with this red. Actually, I'm going to put the stripe in with the red. The portholes are slightly orange, so I'm going to mix up the red and some yellow to do that. But we're going to start with the red. We've got a good heaping helping of the red on the sub itself, the window, the portholes, and the upper railing, the conning tower railing. So we're going to let that stuff dry. And then comes the part of masking it off and starting to segregate the colors between the golds, the yellows, and the off-whites. Alrighty, I've just put down the outer ring porthole masks. And what I'm going to do now is mix up a brown color to go inside the portholes. And it always waits till I start talking before the compressor kicks on. Anyway, like I was saying, spray the insides of these brown, but what I want to do is make sure I don't overspray and get onto this red area where I want to keep the stripe. So I need to cover the stripe itself with the mask. Okay, now the red stripe is protected. Voila. I can go in there and start monkeying around with the main colors. First I want to put in this brown. Okay, I got some of the colors just masked in just to see how they're going to play off of each other. I think I've got my good color combinations ready to go. So I am going to let these coats dry and then come back and refine the lines and refine the areas. But for the most part, I'm happy with the palette. Welcome back to Pepperland, kids. It is Friday. It is the last work day of the week, but not for me, maybe. Who knows? Every day is much like the next these days. Only the singing of the birds changes any. But let's check. Let's do a health check. Let's see where we are. I won't say that I had to resort to it because that makes it sound like a desperate thing, but I had to fall back onto the Tamias that I was using rather than the Vallejos. Vallejos, they gum up my airbrush. I don't know whether I have to tinker with the formula for how much thinner, what pressure to use, and all that kind of stuff, because it was proving to be more of a problem than I wanted to deal with. Now, I will still have to use it. I'll still have to deal with it. But like I said, I fell back to my more familiar Tamias when it came to painting the yellows on the said Yellow Submarine. Finding the second color was tough. I originally went with this as my darker color, and then I had this yellow sand as the lighter color, and the whole thing ended up turning out too light. So I went with what I was using as my darker color, which was the Mega Straight Yellow. I went with that as my lighter of the two colors, and then I went to a blended version of a chrome yellow Tamiya with a little bit of orange in it to do up the what was now going to be the darker color. And the nice thing about having the Periscopes is that I could use two Periscopes side by side and to gauge my my two-toneness, since so much of this is taped over, and it's tough to gauge the yellow on the taped over from the yellow tape that I'm using, which is also, you know, a unfortunate happenstance is that the painter's tape that I'm using is yellow as well, because that really tends to throw off my eye as far as what kind of coverage I'm getting with my paint. But you being able to use or sit two of the Periscopes next to each other, I can get a better idea of how the color differences are working. And I think that those are the two colors that I really want to use. So there, I have let the Tamiya on here. I've got these guys taped off. I am crossing my fingers, my toes, my eyes, and right down to the DNA of my body. I'm crossing everything, that I don't end up lifting paint back off when this mask comes off, because I don't know what's wrong with this piece of plastic. Everything I've done to it, I cannot get paint to stick to it. So we're going to see. We're going to see. This kit has vexed me from the very beginning. Now I've got one panel back in here that needs to be painted that same orange, and I probably should uncover that now while the paint is still out and fresh and abundant. But that's the last bit of this darker color that I need to address. I've got that back hatch masked off and painted. So we are going to let this thing dry and then come back to it and strip everything off. And actually we got to strip all this off and see what I need to touch up on the conning tower with that whitish color, and then mask the bright white hatch in the front. So we're coming down to it. Starting to take the tape off of this thing, and I'm really digging the color, the two-tone color choices. I'm going to be very careful. The last thing I want to do is to mask this area off and retouch the white or the very, very pale yellow above it. So I'm going to be very careful as to not tear off any underlying paint. And if I can get the white touched up, then the big deal is going to be taking these stripes off and showing the red that's underneath. See how well that has survived between that and the portholes. That would be the last remaining bits. Now, the I have to be very careful because I don't want to gouge any paint here. Okay, I've just got the lighter, and this is a very, very pale yellow. That's not white. That's a very, I don't know whether the distinction is showing up on camera, but once I get this painted pure white, you will see the difference. That is actually a very pale yellow. Okay, I've just spent the last few minutes tinkering and scratch building the propellers. They're kind of rough. Of course, they need to be painted red, but I think they might just do the job. You put them back there. I think. Oops, I don't want to touch that. That's still maybe wet. Something like that. No, I'm not going to motorize them. Stop it. I just sprayed the bright white on, the pure white, and I'll let that dry for a bit before I take the tape off. Actually, I can take the perimeter tape off. That's not going to hurt anybody if I do that, he says carefully, as he slowly pulls the tape off. Yeah, and you can see the difference between the cream-colored rest of the conning tower and the distinctly white front hatch there. And I also did the rudder in the same white. So I can pull some of that tape off now too. Everything else, I think if I need to touch it up, I should do it by hand, because I'm getting to the point where the masking tape, or the tape that I'm putting down to mask things, is potentially more hazardous than overspray would be, or potentially more dangerous than it would be for me just to worry about the overspray of spraying it with an airbrush. So we'll let this dry and we'll come back to it in a little bit. Okay, there you go. That compressor knows me. There you go. It's the there you can see the white gate versus the beige. Now I think the time has come, dear friends, to take the rest of these masks off and see what kind of shape we're going to be in. We should start seeing some red now. I've got the porthole masks removed, and I won't kid you. There was some paint lift off and some patching that needed to be done. But those are the portholes on the side, and that does not bode well for the stripe. So we're just going to have to see and hope that there is not too much repair work that needs done on it. It's not too bad considering this piece of right here that peeled up of the red paint. I can go back in. Luckily I've got two very well defined lines to paint in between, so if it's not any worse than that on the other side, I can consider myself pretty lucky. The bottom stripe came off lovely, but we'll see. I could go back in time. I think A, I probably wouldn't have picked this model off the shelf to build, but B, I certainly would have scrubbed it down with a lot more detergent to clean it off before I started. But it's the stuff you don't really think you should have to do on a commercial kit. And another country heard from. On a commercial kit, you don't think you have to take the same precautions that you do on a garage kit as far as cleaning the parts. Ooh, this is going very well. I'll keep talking and keep myself distracted. So you don't always wash them like you should. But, ooh. Yes. Okay, so a couple tiny smidgens there to touch up on the red paint. Yay. Good news. The last thing I just did was to put the little nose bits in there. These little accents that go up on the nose, and that's just a little bit of the rust wash. I made a oval mask there and just sprayed both sides of that so that you get that going on. And now we're ready to let this dry, because I'm afraid of handling it and moving the forgetting where I've touched the paint up and inadvertently smearing it. So we're going to move this off to the side and maybe go grab some late lunch. It's mid-afternoon here. I'm almost to the point where I would normally shut down for the day, but I'm going to go for a little bit longer. Been painting up the periscopes since we got those going on. Yeah, I don't want to pressure those too much to push those in place because of grubby, dirty hands. But we've got that, and then we've got the railing ready to go on. So we're pretty close to finishing now. I don't want to spray any sort of clear over this yet. I know I will want to before I put the decal down. I don't want to spray anything on this. Just I want to let things dry for a while. I don't want to run the risk of anything running, for lack of a better term. So this may be one of those deals where we don't quite finish on Friday, but who knows. We have just glued down the periscopes. Glued down the periscopes, and attached the props. Not bad for a ham-fisted goon. I think those look pretty good. Now I touched the yellow paint on there once these have dried, and I'm starting to see all the dents and divots left from the putty that wasn't quite leveled off like it should have been. But we are very, very close to being finished. Really, all I need to do is clear coat this and put the big these sun decals on the sides. I don't like them, but I'm working with what we have. I wish they were brighter. I wish they were larger. I wish all kinds of things. But I hate to use the phrase because it's a cop-out, but it is what it is. I don't believe it is what it is. I believe it is what you will let it be. And we're going to let this be. Beetle puns intended. So, is take the gloss varnish. I know I've got it. But rather than spraying it, because this gloss varnish will clog an airbrush in a heartbeat, I'm just going to brush it on with a clean bristle or clean regular brush here. I know I've got some that are flat bristles, yes, and nice and clean and not used for anything else. Just going to brush it on the areas where the decals are going to go, and then once that's dry, we'll pop the decals on, give this thing a satin coat after that, and it will all be done. Okay, as maybe you can see, I have cleaned off the table for my typical end of week clean off. So, so one last thing to do on the Yellow Submarine, and that is to put these very colorful logos, insignias, signs, designs on the side of each of the conning tower. So let's go ahead and do that. I've already coated the area with a little bit of the thin or the gloss varnish from Vallejo, and that will allow the decals to stay on the or suck down really nicely. I've got a nice clean brush here to blot out the air bubbles and things like that. So I am ready to put these on the sides. Now I need to put it about, I gotta eyeball this because it's a little too small for what it should be. Here you can see even in the instructions they show it covering from the air, you know, most of that whole conning tower, whereas it is much smaller than that in real life. So we will do what best we can with it. So I'm letting that one soak and thinking about what next week's build might be. I still haven't decided. I'm going to pull something out of the closet o' wonders to figure out what that's going to be. I'm still not done with this. I mean, I've got a little bit of dressing up to do. Once these decals are on and everything's gotten a satin coat, I might want to do a flat coat, or a flat coat over, I'm sorry, not a satin coat, a flat coat over the decal. I may want to go back in with the clear gloss and just paint in the porthole glass where those areas would be with a clear to give the indication that that is a window. Okay, that's coming off. So we have to do this in the area. Okay. There we go. Now, wonder of wonders, that purple area did not miraculously turn blue like it's supposed to. It's still purple. So let me center this in the area that we've got to put it in. The thing about these cheap brushes is that they shed like nobody's business. I hate using an Exacto knife to move a decal around, but I may have to here. Yeah, because all this does is rip them. But I wanted to level it out. And that looks to be about as good and level as I'm going to get. So, Q-tip to dry it off. Luckily, the contour behind it is flat, so there's no, it's not like you have to put the decal up over a shape or anything. So there you go. There's the nice colorful. Does it need to go a little bit farther forward? I think it might. Yeah, we'll push it a little further forward and level it out. Okay, let's do the one on the other side. And then this will be more or less done. I'll let this dry. I want to let it dry for at least an hour or so before I clear coat it, and I don't think I'm going to end up clear coating it today, so we may just finish the decal, break a bottle over the thing, and call it ready for launch. While I'm waiting for the sub to dry sufficiently to coat it, I'm just whipping together a very quick little plinth temple-like structure for the base. And I'm just cutting some sheets of Trovicil, I guess this is. This is the thicker plastic. Much, much thicker than styrene. This is what we used to make signs out of, as well as using Coroplast, but this is a thick, solid, extruded PVC. So I just took it outside and on the belt sander beveled up the edges so that I can get them to miter together like that, just by eye, nothing too fancy. But I'm going to glue these up and see how much reinforcing they're going to need. So let me do that. Well, there you go. I'm trying to block the afternoon sun off of it, but you have the finished Yellow Submarine posted on its little plinth here. I'll probably paint that up over the weekend to look more like stone, maybe indicate the steps in it and something like that. But this one fought me, I got to tell you. It was a long and winding road to get here, and I don't mind telling you that I didn't think I would finish this when I'm 64. I'm trying to throw in as many other Beatles song titles. I feel like Jeremy Hillary Boob. I feel like giving it the finger. I'll post here. I'll stick this next to it. That's nice. And let's see. I'll put a blue meanie over here. And let's see. Let's put old Fred behind it, and perhaps Jeremy the Boob in front of it. And that is it for this week. A weird week in a number of ways, but was able to wrest at least one good kit out of it. This kicked my butt. I don't know why. Such a simple little thing. You can see the custom-made propellers for the back. I don't know why. The paint wouldn't stick to it. The colors wouldn't match up right. The building of it in the first place, it was like putting two dissimilar cats in a bag, trying to push those two sides together and make them come out and get the seams to work. Like I said, all you need is Bondo to get this thing done. And I keep looking back and forth at it like I don't trust it. Like it could jump up and still fall over and let the paint all fly off of it. But it was a quick one. It was a 1 week build, and spent, you know, a little bit of last weekend finishing up the Nautilus, and I think I'm done underwater for a while. I think I have scratched my under the sea itch for a bit. I don't know what the next thing is going to be, but it is definitely either going to be land or space. It's not going to be water. So until next week, when we figure out what that's going to be, you be good, you be safe, you take care of each other, you be good to each other, you keep your social distance. Now, I've been doing this, like I've said, I've been socially distanced since the 70s, so I'm right ahead of that curve. But you be good, you take care of yourself, and we'll see you here next time.